Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode 2. It's your girl, Church Girl. Firstly, I just want to thank everyone for their support, for their love. I appreciate the journey that we're on together. And, as I speak into Jesus and I'm speaking more and sharing more of the gospel with you all, I'm just super excited. I'm excited for what God has planned for this space and this podcast, and it's all praise to Him. So I just want to give a shout out of praise to Jesus and our Heavenly Father for what He's doing in this space and how He's reaching people and how I'm able to share the word for Him. And I wanted to speak into, I had a few people reach out to me and share a little bit about their story, a little bit about their testimony. It encouraged me to step into more speaking about the things that we struggle with and where the times that we go through. And in our lives, it's tricky because we all experience hard times, challenges, seasons where we're lost, we feel like we have no identity and we don't know who we are, and we all experience unworthiness and anxieties around different things. And I just wanted to encourage you, to those people that reached out to me, is that we all have these moments, and I think social media really portrays perfection, and it's our highlight reels, and we can't compare ourselves in this space. And I also want to just let you know that no matter what you are going through and no matter the battles that you're battling, like Jesus is fighting for us. He's got your back. And I want to read into Jeremiah 1:5, and we'll speak right into Jeremiah 1:5 to 8. And this is in the New International Version. If you've got your Bibles with me, I encourage you to turn to this book and read it with me. It will show up on the screen as well. So it's found Jeremiah 1:5 to 8, New International Version. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And so here the Lord is speaking to Jeremiah. And that is verse 5. And what I really took from this verse in Jeremiah was, before I formed you in the womb, before He formed Jeremiah, He's speaking to in the womb, He knew him. He knew his purpose. He knew what he was called to do. He knew him intimately. He was already set apart. So to be set apart means to be sanctified, so made holy. So the Lord was saying this to Jeremiah, and I want to speak into this from a perspective of us and how this relates to us in our lives and how we can take this word as encouragement. God knows us. God knows you, that He has a purpose for you, that He knew you before you were born, that each and every one of us has been chosen. And that, if that doesn't give you enough awareness or enough confirmation, I think is the more appropriate word, of your worthiness, nothing else can confirm more than God knew you. God knows you. He knew you before you were born, and He knows you. I want to carry on to verses 6 through to 8. Sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. So Jeremiah's response was, I'm too young. Like, I can't be a prophet to all the nations. I'm not a prophet. I can't do this. I'm not ready. this is what he's saying to the Lord. And we carry on. But the Lord said to me, do not say, I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. And I want to repeat verse 8. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. And in those verses, Jeremiah, he didn't think he felt inadequate. He didn't feel experienced. He was young. He wasn't qualified, the word. He didn't know what he had to do. He didn't feel like he was enough. And God reassured him that he was. He told him, don't be afraid. I've got you. He knows us intimately. He knows before we were even here of our plan in life. And I feel that word is needed. I needed to speak into that with the feedback that I've had from my first episode, and I love that. I love people reaching out to me. Thank you so much. I hope that sharing a little bit into Jeremiah and the things that he battled with, but then the Lord confirming that he knows us when we're in our mother's womb. And Jesus knows us better than we know ourselves. And if that can lift you up today, and that can give you hope, and that can help you see God's love for each and every one of us and for you, that fills my heart, because we need sometimes that reminder that we don't need to look external to what's going on in other people's lives or what people have or the blessings that they have, because you have your own purpose. You have your own plan and your own experiences that you're going to experience. And it led me in from this, speaking into Jeremiah, is speaking about the glory of God. And my first episode, I touched base on my testimony. I really spoke into my testimony. But today I wanted to share with you all God's goodness, his power, his greatness, his love, his beauty, and really the glory of God and what that is. And that's what the glory of God is. The glory of God is being able to witness all the good and witness God entirely. And for me, going through what I went through, which I shared with you in my first episode, was challenging. It was hard. It was hard to understand being in a victim mentality to being the victor. And if I was to speak into that from a faith perspective, is God uses our brokenness for purpose. And when we use that purpose in the light of Jesus, and then the glory from that is all his, and the victory is his. And I need to share that with you all. And that's what we're going to speak into. So after I had lost my son, Samson, I feel when you lose, like for me, when I lost my son, your heart just feels empty. So you allow yourself to grieve and you allow yourself to heal, and that's what I did. I found my community, I found my people. I was able to really heal internally and physically, and as you all know, invite Jesus into my heart and receive Jesus and be saved. And since that day, I haven't looked back. And when I found the church that I now still go to. I had never seen the obstetrician again from there, and she had my number and said that she was going to reach out to me, and I knew she was a Christian lady, and that's what encouraged me to look for another church. And as I shared with you all, I found my church, and the experiences that I had there first off, and when I invited Jesus into my heart, it changed my life. It transforms us internally. It transforms our lives. It changes us. And that's what Jesus does. Jesus works from the inside out, and he transforms us. It's really the changes in our lives don't come externally. It comes within. And that's also the beautiful thing about Jesus, is that it's not focused on anything else or anyone else, but the relationship that we have with him. And when I went to church, it was 2 months after going to church, I said to my husband, she's not here. And I really was hoping, out of all the churches on the Gold Coast, I was hoping that I'm going to bump into this obstetrician. That's my faith. And it was about 2.5 months later, I was walking to the kids club at my church, and I got a tap on the shoulder. I turned around, and it was the obstetrician in the church that I found, and she was there. We both broke down in tears, and we couldn't believe it. And I knew that's where God wanted our family. And we don't know how that worked, but I just know that is God. That is the goodness of God. That's how he works. He works in mysterious ways. And to know that I never saw her for nearly 3 months, and all of a sudden she tapped me on the shoulder and she was there. She was actually away for work, and that's why I hadn't bumped into her earlier. But that has been my church ever since. I haven't looked back. I have just gone full force forward into sharing my testimony and sharing God's love for each and every one of us, and also sharing the glory of God and his victory. And I continued going to church and carried on with life, but I really had this, on my heart, I wanted to have another child, and I wanted to get pregnant again. And it's so scary. It was scary for me at that time, because I had all this anxiety. I had all this shame as well, that I couldn't even carry my son. It was like, what if I can't carry this baby? How am I going to get pregnant? What if something bad goes wrong? And exactly what I spoke into in my last episode, the fear. Everything pops up, and that's what happened with me. And we didn't try straight away due to the C-section I had. I had a classical, which means that you've got to wait a little bit longer to try again for another baby. And really mentally, I wasn't in the right space, so I didn't want to rush it. But it was just on my heart. So at the right time, I wanted to get pregnant again. At that time, it was really, I really thought that another baby would help with the grief or help with the hurt. But I learnt that it really doesn't. It doesn't take away your grief, and it doesn't take away when you have another child. Every child is completely different. Your love for them, their smell, their everything. And I look back now and see it as, I didn't need to rush into that, and I'm glad I didn't rush. I knew it was a learning time for me. It was a time where I was able to just learn more about myself, because when you've been through those type of experiences in your life, it really changes you. And the way I explain it now is that I see life in a different way, of a different lens. So I wear different glasses to what everyone else might wear based on what I've been through. So how I see the world is completely different to how someone else might see the world. And that's how I explain my grief and what I've been through. Little things just don't matter to me. And I love that the way that it's transformed my life. I now see the understanding of what I went through, and I now see why I went through it and the beauty in it and how my son changed me as a mother, as a woman, how he helped me he threw me into a different person, into a whole new way of life. And the appreciation, the gratitude, how I love people is entirely different to before my son. And this little person, this little boy, the impact he made on so many people's lives is huge. How he has transformed me and his father is he has given me the biggest gift. And that's what it is. He has given me the biggest gift. God has given me the biggest gift because I have been able to work within myself and transform myself. And now into many things in life, including one of these things, this podcast, and speaking life into people and encouraging people and lifting people up. I am so grateful for my son. I am so grateful for the unconditional love that he showed me and he's taught me. I have learned how to love through my son and through my children. And so when me and my husband were trying again, we made sure we got all the all clear, and we were trying, and it didn't happen right away. It was actually 10 months after, 10 to 12 months after we had lost our son, and it was in perfect timing. God's timing, not ourselves, as I spoken to on in my last episode. And I fell pregnant. I still remember that day, like those moments in our lives, you just remember everything. What you were doing, the clothes you were wearing, where you were, smells, that exact moment you can go right back to. And I know all of you all can resonate with me when we've shared special moments, and also the good and the bad moments is that we remember every detail. And we're so overwhelmed with joy. We're so grateful. We just thought, what a blessing. How good is God? And we really just gave him all the praise, all the glory, all the time leading up to it, in the waiting, as we call it. It's the waiting that gives us anxious. It makes us anxious. We want it to happen. We want it to move along in our timing, but really, we are not in control of what happens in our lives. And we have to just get to a point where we just let go of control and we just surrender to really what's going to unfold. We can prepare. We can have everything in place in order for it to flow easier or flow better, I would say. But we're not really in control of things external from us. Sometimes we're not even in control of what happens within us. And for me, I learned surrender very early on with being pregnant with my son. I couldn't even control what my body was doing. So if I couldn't control what my body was doing, how am I going to control external things? And we really have to let go of that, the need to control, and allow God to do what he's going to do. And when we allow God to do what he's going to do, what's meant for us will be. Who's right for us, whether it's people, whether it's plans we have, whether it's things that we work towards. If it happens, it happens. If a door closes, another opens. And so really surrendering to God's purpose for us and God's will is so important. And it really, like, when I learned surrender and what surrender is, and when I learned the art of letting go and allowing Jesus to take over, I just feel so much peace and I feel so much at ease. And that's what happens when we allow God to do what he's going to do. So in perfect timing, I got pregnant. And like I said, we were overjoyed. And though this was such a beautiful time for us, I still had the anxiety every day, like the first weeks of finding out I was pregnant. The things I was thinking about, I was anxious every time I went to the bathroom. And this is in the early weeks of pregnancy because I found out, I think, 4 weeks pregnant. Every time I went to the bathroom, I'll think, oh no, I hope I'm not bleeding. I hope nothing's wrong. I was always anxious. I was full of anxiety and I would just pray to God. And when I'm spending time with God, I'll have my worship on and I'm on my knees and I'm just praying to him to really take over everything that's happening and just to comfort me through the early stages. And though 12 weeks is the mark where they say 3 months, the pregnancy is vital and safe, what I learnt losing my son at 7 months pregnant is that being pregnant and giving life is the greatest blessing and the greatest gift that we get that we have and that we get to do in this life, and being a parent, because at any time and at any stage it can be taken away from us. And so I now understood pregnancy as I was never safe in pregnancy, that anything can happen no matter how far along I am. And that's how I was feeling at the time. And all I could do was put on my worship music and just sit with God and spend time with God. And that's what I did, because that's the only thing that gave me comfort. It was the only thing that gave me reassurance that everything was going to be okay. No words from anyone. My husband's support was incredible. And other than him, nothing else could make me sure that nothing was going to happen. I was worried. He was worried. My husband works FIFO, so he works away. So he was always checking up on me. How are you feeling? And with my pregnancies, I get hyperemesis, which is HG, which is severe nausea. So I'm already in and out of hospital. With that, I'm bedridden. I can't eat. I'm constantly nauseous every day. I'm on medication. It is the hardest thing, HG in pregnancy. It is horrible. So that is what I experience with every pregnancy. And so with that on top, I just was always worrying. And it was the 8-week mark where I had to go in for my first scan at the hospital. I went in for my scan and my younger sister was with me. My husband at this time was at work. And the scanner, they went to scan my belly. And I saw 2 sacs, 2 babies on the scanner, and I had to double look. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I just froze for a moment. And I was like, is that 2 babies? To the worker that was working and the sonographer. And she went to double check and she's like, it is. And I was like, is that twins? And she said, yes, it is. She had to check over everything. It was still early. It was only 8 weeks. But in my family and in my husband's family, we don't have any twins. We don't have any twins in our family, so we didn't think we're going to have twins, not at all. Our parents, even their brothers and sisters weren't twins. I think about 4 or 5 generations back, there are twins. We don't really know. We don't have any auntie and uncles that are twins, and no one in our immediate families were twins. Our parents hadn't had twins before, so we never thought at all we would be twin parents. I would have loved to have twins. I always spoke about it. I was like, oh man, I would love to have twins. Oh, that'll be amazing. One of each, I would say. And in this moment, when I was at my ultrasound appointment and I saw these 2 babies, I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked. and they had to check over everything. And these babies, so I had ovulated and released 2 eggs. So they had their own placentas, their own sacs, their own separate little homes to grow in. And so I just couldn't wrap my mind around what was happening in that moment. And I was just overwhelmed. I was full of joy. I was happy. I just couldn't believe it. And it took me a long time to process what I had seen. And we checked over everything at my appointment. The babies were healthy. I went home. My husband was at work. He rang me up while at work and said, "How did your appointment go?" And I said, "The babies are good." And I was waiting for him to click. And he's like, "The babies?" And he had shared with me that he just had this feeling that there were 2. And he was so happy. I'm sure you could imagine how blessed we felt. And just there, just in that moment of discussing, I'm sure you could imagine how me and my husband felt. And we were just overjoyed. And that really showed the goodness of God and his power and his greatness and his love and grace he had and what he does in our lives. And when I knew I was having twins, all the anxiety just went from me. And I thought to myself, what it confirmed to me was that God knows me, just like Jeremiah in verse 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you before you were born. And that's what confirmed to me that God knows us better than we know ourselves. He knew what I was capable of. And to confirm that, I was pregnant with twins. And so the anxiety and the worry that I felt, I was like, I'm having 2 babies. I not just can carry 1, I can carry 2. And when I speak into that, the anxiety completely left me, I lost all worry. I now had this confidence, this confirmation that everything's going to be okay, that I can carry my babies, and that it is not me. I am more than capable. I am worthy. It gave me a whole different level of understanding. And I saw his glory, and I just automatically felt peace and comfort, that I didn't need to worry anymore, that I know that he knows me more than I know myself, that he knows me more than what I know, what I thought I knew, that I was capable of, and that he intimately knows us, that he has a plan for us before we're even born. Like he knew his plan for me. And so here I am, pregnant with twins. And as I went along in my pregnancy, by the not stressing, not worrying about not even getting full term, I was carrying 2 big babies, 2 healthy babies, twins, not just a singular pregnancy. And if that does not show God's glory in my testimony, nothing else will. Like, this is how God works. And I was monitored very, very closely. I found out I was having a boy and girl. How good. And I had them a little bit earlier, as it's quite normal for twin pregnancies to come earlier and be delivered earlier. And they just wanted to make sure, because I had a classical C-section. So my uterus was not cut across like normal, it was cut down. So even just having a twin pregnancy in a classical Caesar mum is a risk in itself. So I was monitored really carefully by the hospital. And my twins were born 32 weeks and 6 days, so very early, 7 weeks early. They spent 7 weeks in special care. They were in the NICU for 4 days, and the NICU is intensive baby care, just like what their brother was. And so now that I knew I was going to have to go back to the same hospital, be in the NICU where my son was, and then stay in hospital for 7 weeks, I felt equipped. I felt prepared because of what I had been through with my son, that no pain was greater than losing my son. And now I was walking into a whole different level of challenge. I had 2 babies in the NICU, and you could only imagine how that felt when my son Samson was in the NICU and being told everything's going to be okay. I now had 2 babies to worry about. But the hospital remembered my story and my experience with my son. So they already knew me. They were prepared. They were well equipped. I received the best care. My babies received the best care. We were so happy. It then turned our trauma and experience with our son into a light, a whole new transformation from witnessing such a dark time with our son of loss to then witnessing 2 new lives brought into this world through the same way, through going through NICU and then special care. I'm sure you're all thinking how much that would have just transformed in itself. And it was able to help me, like it really helped my trauma in terms of the healing that I went through. It really took away any feelings or illness that I had towards the hospital or through that experience, because it brought new life. And that's what Jesus does. He brings new and he restores it. He's our Redeemer. He restores our pain, our trauma, and he creates something beautiful and something good from it. And so I have 2 healthy babies. My twins are 1 year old now, was 17 months, corrected. Their names are Gabriel after Gabriel the angel, and Jireh, God's provider. Gabriel, God's strength. They are such an incredible blessing and addition to our family. I am so grateful. They are God's glory. They are the victory. They are his light and his goodness. They are his love. And that is how God works. And they are just incredible. I feel so blessed to have my twins. They were naturally conceived. I never thought I would be a twin mama. Let me tell you, it's a lot of work, but they are such incredible blessings, and I am so proud to be their mum. And I know their brother is watching over them, and I just know that God has a plan for them as well. And I really wanted to speak into God's glory and the goodness of God and his faithfulness and his purpose and how he turns purpose into light and dark into light, is that we all can experience that too, and that's what he wants for us. And I always feel we can fall short of the glory of God and what I wanted to share was a scripture in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And I want to read that to you. And this is the author, who's speaking is Paul. So Paul the apostle is speaking in Romans 8 Paul the apostle is speaking here in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And this is in the New International Version as well. And it reads, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and have been called according to his purpose." And here it talks about, it affirms that things are working together for good in the midst of our suffering. Things are working for the good, and that God is working even in suffering for our good. So even through our pain, even through our suffering, God is working for the greater good. And in the midst of our suffering, He's still working. He never leaves us, even though we feel alone, even though we feel He's not hearing our prayers. When we speak to Him, He's always working for the good. And even when it's not all good, it's all God. Like, it's not going to be good all the time in life. He doesn't promise us that. He doesn't promise us happiness. He doesn't promise us that our lives are going to be good, that the experiences that we're going to go through are going to be all good. But what He does promise is that He's working it out for our good, and that He's always fighting for us, and that He's always with us in that. And in His strength is glorified in our weakness and our weakest times. He's glorified in these moments, because in that suffering, then comes our purpose, then comes the light, and He's glorified through that. His strength is glorified through our weaknesses and our weakest times. And I wanted to close today's podcast in speaking into the victory belongs to Jesus. We magnify Him. We give Him the glory. This podcast is to bring glory to Him and to praise Him for what He's doing and what He's already done. And when we turn to Him, even no matter where we are, He meets us where we're at. Like, we come to Jesus as we are. You can go to Him in your brokenness, how you are, in your struggles, and we turn back to Him, or we turn to Him, and He will direct us in our lives. And when we give less of ourselves, and I've really been when I've been spending time with God lately, and my moments with God, and when I am speaking to Him, I love putting on worship and spending time with God, and I feel most closest to Him. Like, our relationship with Jesus is what matters, and having community and having church and all of that is so beautiful. But being in relationship with Jesus, spending time with Him, whether it's reading our word, having worship, and just sitting with Him, just sitting still, like being in the being rather than doing. Doing the works is beautiful as well, and it's great. But just spending time with Him, being with Him, and just less of ourselves and more of Him. So seeking Him. And I've been really just seeking Him lately, and what He has planned for this space and this podcast, and just really giving it all to Him. And I love spending time with God. I love getting to know Him more, and just strengthening my relationship with Him. And for me, strengthening my relationship with Him means spending more time with Him, being in the secret place, sitting with Him, and just being still, allowing Him to move within my life, within my heart, within all aspects of what I'm doing. And when we allow that, it's full surrender, it's full trust. It's saying, it's seeking Him first and saying, Jesus, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just giving it all to You. And I just want to be in Your presence. And we seek His presence. It just transforms you from the inside out. I love to do it every day. It sets me, it resets everything, my entire being. It sets me up for the day. He's able to just, when we open ourselves up to God, and we're able to be with him, spend time with him, that's when he does the work. And that's when he works within us. And it's really denying ourselves, denying our desires, our flesh, and dying to ourselves in terms of it's picking up the cross and allowing God to continuously retune our hearts, retune us from the inside out, teach us, help us, reveal the things that we have to work on. He reveals everything to us. All we need to do is ask, and he will show you. And I always pray, when I pray to God, I always say, show me the things you need me to work on. Reveal my weaknesses. I always ask him, I always reflect on what I need to work on. And I think that's something we need to do often, is that the external things and things happening outside of us, it's all a reflection of what's going on internally. And so I always ask him to help me to reveal what things I need to work on, because we can always do better. We can always work on ourselves. Like for myself, I love being a student. I love learning. I'm always going to be a student. I'm always going to be learning about God. I'm always going to be seeking a stronger relationship with him. And when we're open to that, when we're open to always seeking him and always asking him to continue to work within us and continue to work on our hearts and anything that our desires, any changes that need to be made within us, that he's able to do that. And when we're open to it, we're free from it. We're able to let that go, and we're able to welcome in what we need, the new, and that's how transformation works. And when we put God first, and when we go to God first rather than other things in our lives, then it always makes things easier. He affirms us. And I want to close on just knowing and just confirming to you that God is God of the impossible. He's our Redeemer. He's our provider. He is love. He is grace. And this podcast is all to give him the glory. He has won the victory. The victory belongs to him. I hope that this has encouraged you today, that if you're in a time like Jeremiah was experiencing and you're doubting yourself or the unworthiness is hitting you, I just want to remind you that you are worthy, that God knew you before you were formed. He knew you when you're in your mother's womb. He has a direct purpose for you, a plan for your life. And my testimony as well, I hope I've spoken into, his glory and his greatness, his faithfulness. I just love Jesus so much. And this is what this podcast is about. It's about sharing Jesus with you all, no matter whether you know God or whether you're a new Christian, a Christian that you've been a Christian for many years or a few years. I just pray that you continue to seek him, that you seek him first. And I hope you have a great week. And until next time, thank you again for all your love and support. I appreciate you guys. And until next week, it's your girl, Church Girl. See ya.